Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
I'm Luke.
Oh, man, it has been just a whirlwind week.
I think we called it, though. We called that it was going to be slow, and then it's going to come around and slap us around.
It was just going to explode, and oh my gosh, has it ever.
Yes. Lots and lots of stuff happening.
So the highlight of my last 2 weeks was we finally got good weather on the Saturday that we do our club inspection.
Yeah, that's the Saturday right after our club meeting, right?
Yep.
On Fridays.
Yep. And I had previously committed to buying the hives off of a club member who was permanently stepping away from beekeeping to do a full-time, long-term gig.
Chasing her dream.
In Yellowstone.
Yeah.
For the summer.
She's always dreamed of doing it.
Yep.
She told me. And
super excited. She came by the house today. Super excited about
all for chasing dreams.
Yep. But that means she wasn't going to be around all summer to take care of the hives, and so it was going to be a benefit to her to just move the hives on, and if she gets back into beekeeping later, so be it. So I arranged to acquire those. I did 2 for the club and 2 for myself. And I had gone through mine previously, and we had found a queen cell in mine. The other one didn't look like it swarmed. We went through the 2 that I had designated for the club, and there were queen cells everywhere.
Yeah. Capped? Uncapped?
Capped, some uncapped. And it was sort of a determination that probably hadn't worked the hives for most of spring. So we got to see some of the consequences of that in terms of what the hives will look like when you haven't worked them when you probably should have.
So in the Midwest, when we say we haven't worked the hives for all of spring, probably means you haven't been in them since last November.
Yep.
So in my mind, she missed. The things that I missed a queen. I missed feeding early if I wanted an early harvest, and I would have missed a hive treatment for mites.
If you were treating in the spring, probably, yeah. But the point here was there wasn't the space on the hive that should have been there.
Right.
We were starting to add supers a week or 2 before that, and so there are queen cells everywhere. And so as I'm looking at the queen cells, I notice a couple of the bottoms of the queen cells, the bottom flaps were flapping.
Oh.
Actively flapping. I'm like, well, gather up, guys. You're about to see some queens emerge. So I hand off my frame, and I had happened to grab my queen rearing box and threw it in the back of my truck because it's got all my marking color pens in it.
Yeah.
And I was going to mark some queens if I had the opportunity.
That lives in my front pocket now.
Yeah. Well, mine fell. I had grabbed a blue one or a green one, and then I took my jacket off, and it fell out, and I haven't found it. So I had to get my backup markers.
It's blue this year.
I know, but I didn't. I had the green ones from last year on the table, and then I put that one in the jacket, and now it's no longer in the jacket. Anyway.
So you have a crew of seasoned beekeepers around you.
Nope. When a student had shown up to look at the hives they had set out, and then I had another new member who didn't have hives who wanted to come out and get some hands-on experience with me. So I was like, oh boy, you're going to get a show. And so I went out and I went back and I picked up 2 queen cages. So these are little boxes with the screen on them.
Yep. The cork in one end and the fondant in the
other? These were the actual queen cage, little square ones that you could put the cap in for QC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
QC 100 cells.
Yes.
So those were the ones I had, and so handy. And so I grabbed those, and then I sort of flipped the top off and watched her back out of the cell, and then took my left-hand glove off and chased her around the frame and snatched her up and shoved her in the little thing and put a little cap in it, and then we proceeded to make basically a queen banking box because I didn't have time. This was toward the end of the inspection, and I didn't have time to make mating nukes out of the material I had there. So no sooner did I do that one than I look over and the one next to it's doing that. And so we get to do it a second time. The third one, she comes out of the cell and she's a darker. They were commenting on all different colors because all three that came out all looked
different.
Noticeably different.
Yeah.
Not just a little different.
You had a blonde. So
Yep.
It's usually, so those are listening, right? Like they're like, what the heck are they talking about? They're noticeably different. Their abdomen can be really, I think they're shockingly pretty. They're really pretty.
Oh, yeah.
But they can be totally different colors. So you can
Yes.
have ones that are blonde that are like honeybee yellow. And I have one that's one of the biggest queens that I've seen. And she is almost entirely black. And you can have like a tiger stripe. There's all kinds of stuff. And it all depends on who their mother and their father is, right? So like, because I'm going to get into high school biology again, right? They are not haploid. They don't have one set of genes. They have two. They're diploid. The drones, on the other side from them, the drones are haploid. So they are like copies of the queen. So anyway, that's how you can get different looking queens from the same mom.
Because they've
Different dads.
likely have different dads.
Yeah.
And this resulted in very noticeably different queens. The third one I tried to catch, she took off out of my hand, and then I caught her, and so then I've kind of got the...
Took off means fly.
Fly.
Because they can fly short distances, kind of more gliding.
Yeah.
But they can fly short distances until they're mated and start laying eggs.
Yeah, so I did the whole, like, catch a lightning bug thing, so
Yeah.
you make a cup between the two hands.
Yeah.
So I feel her running around in there, and so I'm like, all right, well, you have to, like, fish the other queen cage out and get it ready. And so then I kind of open my hand and try to find her running around in my right hand so I can grab her with my left hand. I grab her, and it's sort of a fine line handling queens between, like, too much pressure and you squeeze them, and not enough pressure, and they wriggle out of your fingertips. So it's sort of a nerve-wracking. I've only done it, like, I've been beekeeping quite a while, and I've probably only done it a half a dozen times. I've done it some, but, like, not like a commercial guy who's handling hundreds of queens a week.
And virgin queens are much more wriggly than
they are very wriggly.
Mated queens. Like
Yeah.
the mated queens, kind of you catch them and they're kind of like, okay,
I
you've
don't
caught
like
me.
this, but
Yeah, you're like, yeah, okay, now you've got me. What's going to happen?
yeah,
And then you mark them and put them back. The virgin queens are like, I'm going to fight you,
yeah.
and I'm going to escape. And they do a lot of fighting and escaping.
So in trying to wriggle her up into the thing, she flew away.
Yeah.
The second time, and I grasped at her in the air a second time, and I missed. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I've already got 2 in cages. I've got queen cells that I've split apart and put in different frames already. So I've got like potentially 4 queens that I'm going to try to raise in a sort of mating nuke day. And so we're wrapping all that up. Oh, and then one of the other hives, there's a queen already running around. So we're like, oh, hey, there's a queen. And I'm like, well, there's open queen cells.
Yeah.
So then my student's like, oh, hey, is that the queen? And she's got a frame. And sure enough, there's a queen running. I'm like, okay, great. We'll mark her. So we try the little press in. It's the little disc.
Yeah, it looks like a push-up pop. Like remember the?
No, it's not that one. It's the little
the pressing disc.
Yeah,
like
it's a little disc, and it's got like a bunch of little nail feet.
Looks like it should be a torture device
Yeah.
on like Hell Scream or whatever Hell Razors. That's
So
what sort.
the idea is you can press that down over her.
Yeah.
And then the nail spacing of the legs is supposed to be wide enough that the workers will crawl out of it.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of slowly,
Wiggle it down on her.
as she wiggles around underneath it, you can wait until she's positioned so that her thorax is in the open part of the grid.
Which is when this is the part you mark when there's a
Yeah.
queen because she has like a bald thorax. Most honeybees don't, but queens do have those bald thorax that you can mark with a pen.
And so we tried that, and Hers was a plastic one, and so the grid was really the one I have is tied out of like fishing line, so the grid's super fine.
Yeah.
Which means you get a lot of space. There's a little give to it. Hers was just plastic. I didn't particularly like the way it was responding, so I was like, screw this. I took it off. I reached down, held her, marked her, and let her go. And so my mistake was we were transitioning the frames out of the woodenware into a different set of woodenware. So it gave me an opportunity to go through and look at each and every frame, which I typically don't do for an inspection. And in that, we were setting the frames not over the hive, but in the hive body that was in the yard. And so we set the frame down into that box, and I didn't think much about it at the time, and we were finishing up our frame manipulations, and I go to pick the box up, and this clump out the bottom of the box onto the ground.
Yeah.
And as I hear it and see it, as I twist and turn, I look down and I see a little blue dot crawling around in the grass.
Yeah.
Toward the edge of the empty super we were using as a stand.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, now the queen's on the ground. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, let me set this down first. So I go over and set that on the hive. And they're like, they got a bunch of bees on the bottom. I'm like, I got it. It's okay. And so she's like, wait, what are you saying? I'm like, the queen, the one we just marked, she's on the ground now, over there.
Yeah.
See the little blue dot crawling around? They're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, and that's another reason why you wouldn't want to mark the queen, is because when you make this mistake. So the mistake here is, if you ever find the frame that has the queen in it, if you're going to set her someplace, set her back in the hive.
Yeah, back in the hive. If you can't set her in the hive for whatever reason, I have a 5-frame nuke,
An
a pro
enclosed
nuke.
nuke. Yes.
I have a pro nuke that I keep with me that has nothing in it but that frame, and that pro nuke lives near me.
Yeah.
So don't do the.
So then we got to demonstrate how do you get a bunch of bees off the grass. You can't exactly sweep them up. And so the instant answer to that was, well, they'll just fly back to the hive. And I'm like,
she won't.
That works if they're flyers, but what if those are nurse bees? And they're like, they don't fly. They just crawl. And they're like, yeah, what do you do? And I'm like, well, there's a trick for that. So I go back to the hive. I grab a frame of a drawn frame that's got whatever it's got on it.
Yeah.
And I take it over there and I set it on the ground, basically on top. And they're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because they'll climb up onto the frame because they recognize the frame. It smells like the hive. It smells like honeycomb. It smells like home. Like they'll crawl to the frame. And now, like 30 seconds, a minute later, I can pick this up and put it back in the hive. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll start with this one over here. I picked that one up. And by the time I got back over to where this clump of bees, they had fallen next to a super, a deep, an empty deep. They'd crawled up the side of the deep, the woodenware.
Looking for a place. Looking for a home.
Yeah. And the queen, I could see the queen in there, so I just picked up the box and carried it over. And then I was like, well, again, I don't typically like to be this rough with the queens, but like I don't want to brush her into the hive, so I just did the whole make sure she's over the middle part of the opening and give it a wrap. And
I just grab them and put them in the hive. But I practiced a lot. And I mean a lot with drones.
Yeah.
Picking them up, making sure I didn't squish them, showing them to people, manipulating them so I can turn them, holding their legs, holding them. Usually I hold them right by the thorax. But yeah, that's a real finicky thing to do and nerve-wracking. And then once you get done with drones, I now pick up workers because you can pick up workers gently and carefully and they won't sting you unless you really made them mad.
Yeah, in that process of trying to chase her around, one of the queens around on the frame, I was a little aggressive and I got stung in the fingertip, which is always fun. I went gloveless for maximum
touchability,
dexterity was the fancy word I was looking for.
Dexterity, yeah.
For maximum dexterity on this process. So
as a gamer, you'd think I know that one.
I know.
Yeah. So.
And then we finished up with a swarm. Well, the hive at the end of the row swarmed.
Nice.
Fun follow up. I went back the next day to deal with my banked queens and put them in queen castle looking things, mating nukes. I don't know what you would call them. It was just I needed small boxes to put the queens in.
Yeah, mating nukes.
Plus, I'd capped them with caps, and I needed to put proper something they could chew through.
Yeah,
instead
sugar
of caps.
fondant.
I didn't do that.
Marshmallows.
I just smeared some wax on the end because they'd already been in a box with the girls for 24 hours, so close enough.
They might be able to get through it. They should be able to get through it.
Yeah. So I go back out there Sunday, and the stack of extra woodenware at the end of the row that didn't previously have bees in it the day before now had bees in it. So it caught a swarm somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah.
I saw a swarm leave. They seemed to be headed to a tree and not toward the equipment at the end of the row. So I don't know where.
I had class on Saturday. I had some interesting things happen. While loading up everyone's hives, I had one of my hives swarm up into a tree, 150 feet up in the tree branches.
You're not getting that one, bud.
It's not ever coming down.
Did you get out your pot and pans and tangle them?
No, I didn't. What Steve's talking about is that there's
a wise tale.
I don't know if it's wise tale. I've never seen it done, but they say that if you bang a pot and pan while a swarm's coming, they'll immediately land on a branch, and you can catch them.
I've heard on the ground. I've heard on they'll stop their swarming thing and I don't.
My hives are right next to railway, and it does not seem to bother them when the giant train goes by. And every once in a while, they like to blow their horn at me while I'm out in my suit in my yard.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's loud. That is a loud horn. So,
and when he says the backyard, he's talking 100 feet away.
Yeah, 50, 100 feet away. But my screw up, because I've been beekeeping for a while, right? And I did also a screw up for those. So newbies listening, Steve and I have been beekeeping for a while. We still make mistakes.
We are not immune to the errors.
And my mistake is a beginner dumb mistake. And it's almost embarrassing to say, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So I had a hive that I've been taking care of that is a healthy overwintered hive. And I thought that, and they had been fed over winter. And that was probably a mistake already. But I had a queen excluder on them, and they had empty, at the time they had quart bottles because that's all I had there. I'm trying to do what I can with this hive because it's not my hive, it's not my equipment, and I'm just being paid to take care of it. So I had removed those bottles and removed everything, removed the queen excluder because it was totally caked with beeswax. And I didn't have any medium frames to put in it because evidently how 9 of the 10 frames walked away. I have no idea. And so I had put it all back together, and I thought, I'll get back to this just in a day or two. And it's been a week and a half, and it is heavy nectar flow here. There's lots of, and this was a large overwintered hive, and they proceeded to fill that whole cavity with beautiful white beeswax. And then they filled it with beautiful clear nectar. So I had a box full of nectar and beeswax that I had to take off and break back down and get all the bees out of because it's a full hive of bees. I didn't take a picture of it because I felt so bad. And then I had to do something with all the beeswax, and so I put the beeswax in a cup, and it's nectar, so it poured into the cup. The cup fell over when I was driving. So now I have honey and nectar in my car, in the back of my car, which is on a blanket because I don't know what you do, but I put a blanket down every year. I usually cycle the blankets out every 3 weeks because they get so dirty with wax and honey and stuff.
You've got the fancy weather guard mats, man.
I do, but I have these fancy weather guard mats in my car. Cleaning those with getting propolis off of those is
pressure washer. Just pressure washer.
Not pleasant. Still not pleasant. So I made that oops. Although I had a really nice surprise today that I actually called Steve about. I think, today, at the Chillicothe Public Library. So for those of you beekeepers out there that are like, hey, I want to do some outreach in my community, I have a hive in the Chillicothe Library. They pay me to keep that hive there. I extract the honey for them. I give it back to them, and they sell out almost immediately. As soon as I get the bottles on the shelf and they put they notice out to Facebook, you'd be surprised at the foot traffic that the library will get. So they have a full super capped of honey from an overwintered hive. I had to put another super on it because they were so out of space. So the honey flow, at least in the Midwest, is totally on. Black locusts are blooming. I think they've actually been blooming most this week.
The honeysuckle's blooming.
Honeysuckle's in full bloom.
So on that same topic, the students got one of the 5-frame nukes we sold her, and it got moved to a 10-frame right away. And the 10-frame lived a normal life for about the first 2 weeks. And then last week, about 10 days ago, it got a second set of deep of all new wax foundation.
Brand new foundation, because she had EFB in her hive. So she burned all of the...
She got rid of all the hives.
Inside of the hive.
She wasn't interested in using plastic, so she's going all wax foundation. So she brought 10 frames, brand new, with wax foundation. And a week later, we were in the hives that same Saturday doing an inspection. And it had 8 of the 10 frames were drawn and basically filled with nectar.
Yeah, I think... So these are two different... No, these are both bees, but these are two different suppliers of bees. And I think the ones that she has bought, the ones that we got with these nukes, I would not be surprised if they're production queens. So commercial queens that are made to...
It's going to get
build fast.
Another... we've been trying to get out there. We had afternoon showers both yesterday and today, which have impacted our ability to get out there late afternoon when we've been available to put a honey super on. But the idea is to get a honey super on it before the weekend. So because, again, they're just going gangbusters. In my hive, my apiary, I've been adding supers, and it just seems like, the way stuff's been building, even for experienced beekeepers with a lot of equipment, I've been reworking a bunch of frames, putting wax in my... I got about 50-50 of frames that I can put wax, and wired frames I put wax in, and then just standard ones I've been swapping out the plastic foundation on.
Yeah,
I put them in my solar wax melter.
Yeah, it's been hard to keep up. And I'm up to 6 swarms now, and I've caught 3 queens, which you just never catch queens out of a swarm. In fact, somebody mentioned, right, hey, if I'm catching a swarm, I'd be so worried about getting the queen. You usually can't tell if you get her or not.
Yeah.
But unusually, 3 of these 6 swarms, the queen's bubbled to the top, and I've caught her. And now that I've done that a few times, I don't know that I love doing that. Because releasing her, so she can fly at that stage, right? They've made her work out, if you want to, for lack of a better term. So she's lost weight, so she can fly. When she's laying as a queen, she usually can't fly. And because they've made her work out and she can fly, when you want to release her out of your little queen holder thing, and if she panics, she flies. And so that can be a heart-stopping moment because there's no eggs in there.
Yeah.
So that colony can become a drone layer, right? They're hopelessly queenless. So another trick that I've used to avoid some stuff like that is that sometimes I'll grab a frame of brood eggs usually and throw it in a hive for a new swarm capture. It tends to make them stick around, and if I lose the queen or didn't get her, it's no big deal.
They'll make another one. So again, right on the tail of that story, Thursday, the wife called, says, hey, there's a lot of bees in the yard, which is her way of saying, pretty sure one of your hives is swarming. And sure enough, it was. So I get home, and sure enough, an oak tree about 15, 20 feet up is a pretty good-sized ball of bees, and I'm able to strap a 5-gallon bucket to my pole trimmer and reach up there and give the limb a pretty good knock with the bucket on the bottom. They all fall in a bucket. You take the bucket, tilt it down over I set up a Pro Nuke with some frames and dump it into the Pro Nuke, and I got probably 90% of what was in the tree. In the box, there was some flying. I was like pretty good. Everybody else crawled in that was on the ground. I picked them up. I set them on four-wheeler that was sitting in the yard just underneath where they were. Thought, they're good enough. It's good. And so I said, well, tomorrow I got to go out and check the swarms I've caught and the splits I've made. And I go out there to that box, and I don't see any activity by it. And I look up in the tree, and, there's another ball of bees in the tree about 60 feet up. And I'm like, I can't get up to that one.
Yeah.
So one of those opportunities where if I had stuck some brood in it, or you close them up for the first 24 hours. If they're in the shade, they're not in direct sun. They won't overheat, and they'll kind of stick to that box a little better then.
To that point, though, if they're in sun, so we're in the Midwest. I have put a really beautiful swarm into a closed box and closed them up overnight. And the temperatures in the morning were supposed to be 70s to 80s, and they spiked that day to like 100. And I had the saddest giant pile of cooked bees.
Dead bees, yeah.
And they smell bad, and you feel bad, and they're dead, and there's no coming back. They regurgitate their stomach on there, and it's just, they're wet, and it's pretty gross. So if you're closing them up, make sure you're waking up early and letting them out too.
So that's what we've been busy with for the last 2 weeks. I also noticed that in our news, I stumbled across an article talking about how bumblebees, I think it was mostly focused on bumblebees.
Yeah, I think so too in reading it.
They seem to have a preference for the color of flower that they work.
Which makes sense, right? Because they can't see the color red.
Yeah.
It shows up, right? Their color, they're missing the red.
Gray, right?
Gray or black.
Yeah.
So they were preferring yellow in the example compared to the red.
So there's some more. It sounds like research based on how the various bee groups are seeing flowers and colors. I think it was not too long ago that we figured out bees see magnetic fields. I think we talked about that in the past, and how their colors are real sensitive to blues and yellows, which is why I have my hives painted in blue with some patterns on them, so they can figure out which one's theirs better, hopefully, because I've got mine set up in rows.
Yeah, and that pushes evolution of those flowers too, to be the yellow color instead of the red colors, right?
Because they get
because the more complete.
Yeah, most of our vegetable flowers are yellow. Squash blossoms are yellow. Pumpkin blossoms are yellow orange.
Zucchini,
the sunflowers that are get a ton of activity for pollen. They're all toward the yellow.
Yeah. So it pushes that pollination. That pollination pressure pushes it towards other evolution. So there's knock-on effects, which is really interesting. That they're seeing real life in real time.
For our question segment, we had a lot of recent activity with our Discord we set up for the podcast.
Yeah, and those that are listening, that are joining the Discord, I really appreciate it. That was we were really surprised at the number of people that were happy to join, and the exuberance that you guys are showing in the conversation there. So that's really nice.
I think you brought along. You finished up with is it the semester, the summer, the course?
The journeyman portion of the Master Beekeeping course
has been completed, and toward the end of that, you invited the students to come hang out in the Discord to give an area to continue their beekeeping discussions.
Yeah, I successfully passed the course, so yay for me. I'll be taking the next master portion of that course. Actually, I signed up for this year. I don't know if I'm allowed to take it this year or next year. It's not very clear. So I might have to wait.
You to have more beekeeping experience underneath your belt between the two?
Or apply what we've learned, maybe.
Okay.
Anyway, I signed up for it anyway.
Yeah.
They took my money. So
all right.
I guess I'm in.
So there was a lot of activity there, including some questions. Somebody asked about city ordinances for beekeeping.
Yeah.
Which is something we have specific experience with because our club was spearheaded getting the local ordinance for Peoria changed to allow beekeeping.
Yeah, from totally legal to you can have two hives, and you're supposed to have a fence, but they don't really.
Yeah, they're more particular about the setback off your property line.
Which makes more sense, actually.
Yeah.
Like the fence portion of the ordinance is pretty silly, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Their concern is that bees fly in a straight line out from the hive.
Yeah.
And if you've ever seen a bee yard or stood in a bee yard, you realize that they fly in a straight line for about a foot, maybe, and then they gain altitude, and they want to be up and away from stuff.
But the idea was the fence would force them up and over, get it out of the people space quicker.
Yeah.
But the reality is if you just enforce a setback off the property line, then they're probably going to be up and out of the bee space before they're off your property, which was the intention anyway. So, and then we also you worked on Chillicothe.
Yeah, Chillicothe, they were also illegal to be within the city. And again, the Chillicothe library worked with me to get theirs legalized. So technically now you're supposed to go to the board and ask for a certificate that says I can have beehives. However, they're willing to review that ordinance now to be removed from the books, stating that because they stated that their honeybees were a pest. So how times have changed, right? There used to be a lot more bees around.
Yeah. So if you got some questions about this in your municipality, here's a real quick summary of some things you can do. First, understand where they're coming from. A lot of these are carryovers from livestock ordinances where they didn't want goats and chickens because technically bees are considered livestock. So if you don't understand why they were included, lots of times it was just lumped into the livestock category. Second, the discussion, I will almost guarantee that none of the people on the board you're talking to are going to be beekeepers, so they're going to know nothing about beekeeping. So you're going to have some. If you're the person spearheading this, be prepared to speak in front of that board, alderman, council group. So you need to be an educated person that's willing to give presentations in public, because you will have to do this probably a couple of times. And third, they are not going to want to have to spend the time to roll their own, so make their own ordinance. So if you can walk in with the ordinance from another municipality in the area, the closer to your municipality, the better. They aren't interested in what California does or what Pennsylvania or New York does if you live in Texas, right? Find something that's as close as possible and walk in there with it in hand and go like, hey, so-and-so city 50 miles away has approved them having bees in their city. I think we should do the same. You can just copy their ordinance. They're much more willing to look at that and go, well, if it already passed that council, it'll pass our council, right? Like we could get this past ours since we don't have to technically do anything, right? It's good enough for them. Some legal department somewhere has already reviewed it, right? It's going to have all the right legalese and all the right language in there because it's already an ordinance somewhere. So if you walk in with, hey, this works for them, I propose we use this here, you're going to have a much smoother discussion than just saying like, hey, we need to have bees and you should come up with an ordinance.
Yeah, and if you're looking for the specific Peoria ordinance, it is on the Heart of Illinois Beekeeping website at hoibees.org, and it's on the right side of the screen. It says Peoria, Illinois ordinance or something along those lines.
And that was the model that we used. We had copied ours from, I think, one of the Chicago municipalities.
Chicago.
Yeah. So not Chicago proper, but one of the surrounding municipalities.
Yeah. And be aware that you may get turned down. I'm looking directly at East Peoria right now, where it is not legal to have bees. However, it is legal to have them in Peoria. The concern in East Peoria is that if you had bees there and they were legal, they might sting a child, which is kind of silly nonsense, right? Because there's bees in the wild, and if a child is allergic, there are ways to go through and keep that allergy from being a thing. Cause
Yeah, if you want to hear more, like there's a bunch of talking points that we've already hashed out. A lot of the most common questions and concerns that we've already drawn up talking points for. And if you're interested in hearing more about those, leave us some feedback, and we can certainly dedicate some time in the podcast to covering that in the future.
Yeah, and if you'd like to join our Discord server, we have that information. I will put it in the notes underneath this podcast. So you're welcome to join. We don't have a lot of people talking on there, but we have a lot of people writing.
It's a place where you can also share some photos. We got several people sharing photos.
I've got a nice photo of a stinger that I pulled out of my finger that I'll be putting up there pretty soon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
A good macro shot.
Yeah. Yep.
Our last segment of the day is Droning On, where we talk about what we're doing in the next 2 weeks. I know we're going to be in the immediate future spending a good amount of time doing our last-minute prep for our queen rearing class that we have coming up this weekend. So this will be the first time for us giving this. So the students that are going to be attending, we're sorry in advance. This is why you got the discount for being the guinea pigs. But it should be a good time. It's going to be an all-day event. It's going to have a hands-on portion, and we're going to have it's going to include lunch and a bunch of materials for you to walk away from, some grafting tools, some grafting cells, some cute, easy-beasy cups for you to take with you. So after you leave with the class, you should have all of the knowledge and tools you need to go out and do grafting in your backyard.
And Mom promised to make chocolate chip cookies. So, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll have cookies on hand just in case.
So we've been working on that. I have also need to put more honey supers on. And we talked about trying to put together a trailer load of hives to get down there to the clover field. I was wanting to do that like last week, and then this week is going to be half over, and we're still not getting it done, and this weekend is not looking good. So then I'm wondering how many weeks we're going to have
to put them out into clover?
To put it out in the clover before he sprays. So it might just be maybe 2 weeks before he sprays. I mean, 2 weeks is better than no weeks.
I still think, and we're probably going to do a mixed load. We'll probably do ones that are growing and then ones that are established and see the difference. Because, and probably your question, like, why would you put ones that are growing out there? Because more forage, right, allows them to grow technically faster, right? They should be able to put more away. They should have better resources to grow faster.
I feel like that is the sensible sort of makes sense, logical answer.
Yeah, the other side of it.
3 weeks is 3 weeks, man. Like you can't make brood any quicker than 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can lay all the eggs you want today. You're not going to have any more flyers for 3 weeks. It's just a fact of life.
She's still capped at 2,000 eggs a day.
Yeah.
So the other side of it that I was thinking about also was, hey, I've got all these resources. I'm getting all these resources. What happens in the Midwest when we have this kind of flow and stuff? We get honey bound and pollen bound.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have hives that are an hour away that we're probably not going to go check on that are honey bound.
I was planning on making a drive down there. Well, the idea was to be once a week.
Yeah.
But the idea was I was going to load up a bunch of extra equipment on the trailer so I didn't have to remember to bring stuff with me.
Right.
I mean, other than my normal, like, smoker and hive tool and stuff.
Sure.
But then whatever hives, we go through all the hives on the trailer. Whoever needed something, we'd have equipment on the trailer to throw stuff on it.
Sure.
And then
I'm still afraid of honeybound. It's like we underestimate the amount of flyers we've got that are going out and gathering stuff. And yeah, I mean, part of beekeeping, right, is adjusting to the situation.
I've seen the videos from from Canadian Beekeeper, right? Like he's got stacks that are, like 6-7 feet tall. He's having to use his crane to lift the top 4 boxes off so he can put 2 more boxes on under the bottom, right?
Yeah.
So I know that this can be done where you just keep throwing equipment at it and they just keep pushing, just keep loading it up. So
well, right now I have a hive that's got 3 deeps on it and 2 supers, and so
yeah, but that's normal. Oh, 3 deeps? Oh, he said 3 deeps.
3 deeps. Two deeps are the hive body. One that top deep is real heavy. I lifted it off. I also will be sharing some oxylic acid strips that I made with glycol on oxylic acid. I've got some in my car. I made a bunch for slow release stuff. So I threw some on my outside hives, being hives I have to drive like 45 minutes to get to. Threw some on there. Pretty excited about those. They turned out really well.
So I think that's going to wrap up this week's episode. However, bonus content at the end. I got a question for you.
Okay.
We've been looking at, as the beekeeping service expands, what additional investments need to be made, and we're at the point where you need a vehicle that's better than a Lexus SUV to do beekeeping.
Listen, that is a nice car.
I never said it wasn't. I never said it wasn't. I said
it is a funny car when you pull up to work, pull some hives out of the back of your car.
Yes, you are rapidly outgrowing the amount of space that vehicle can offer you.
Yeah,
provide you. I know you were quite impressed with I think it was an F350 or 450.
Yeah,
I think this was a cab chassis, like a 12-foot wheelbase truck that the old guy that we picked up the nukes from in Tennessee. So this is a flatbed. Pretty sure it was non-dump. Had a Tommy gate on the rear, lift gate, and 4-foot slatted metal slide boards.
Yeah.
So it's all commercial, right? None of this was homemade.
No.
And you were taken.
I liked
smitten.
I was smitten
with the way that it looked, because it appeared to work really well for what he did, what he was doing.
Yep.
That is a lot of vehicle to jump into. I have, on the other hand, been trying to look for. So it turns out the rest of the world has got multiple examples of the exact vehicle that would be ideal for you to have. Unfortunately,
it's the rest of the world.
With us Americans and our big vehicles, they don't make it here, and that makes it a challenge to find. So on the top of my list, if I'm speccing this vehicle, is I want what they call a drop side flatbed.
Okay.
And so you can look, these are often featured overseas, aluminum bed, and they have aluminum sides, and the aluminum sides, they're only about a foot tall.
Yeah, these are all over Japan.
And are hinged, and when they hinge, they drop down out of the way.
Yep.
And what that does is that gives you a pretty good pickup bed with the sides up to retain cargo, but at the same time, you can drop those beds, drop the sides, and then it's a flat bed that's easy to load, and it's no higher than waist height. Yeah. And ideally, it's a little lower. The lower the better, because we're trying to hoist beekeeping equipment up to this flat deck. So getting the side out of the way so that you don't have to lift up and over the side, to me, is almost a must.
Well, the tiny Japanese ones are not made for hauling anything. And I still need something that can haul. No,
not the K trucks.
Yeah, like they're
I'm not talking K trucks.
They're like a step up from a K truck, but they're not much, and they are not made to haul. I've seen those. So not made to haul. But something like a step up from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could.
So there's like an Isuzu cab forward, and again it has a 12-foot rear bed, but it's not like putting a flatbed, because they make these flatbeds. You can just go and buy a drop side flatbed. They're not cheap, but so you could find a half ton. But the problem with modern half tons are the floor of those beds are damn near like waist high. Like they're not belt high. They're like halfway to your stomach, like belly button high, right? Like they're starting to get really high.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that some of the fields I go in to get to some of the hives. So one, I drive a lot of miles. So I'm going to be, if I update to something bigger like that, I'm going to have money costs spent in gas.
It's fuel. So you don't need a huge vehicle. You want something that's still reasonably economical. Obviously, it'd be nice if it had a comfortable cab, because with your beekeeping as a service, you're doing a ton of miles.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like at the top of my list is like an early thousands Toyota Tacoma that we put one of those drop side flatbeds on. It gives you 4-wheel drive to get out into a field. It gives you the double cab, so we can take the seat out of the back. So it gives you storage inside the cab that you can stay dry. So you can put beeswax and stuff that you don't want to have to worry about getting wet in the back. If you just want to, like, all right, you get home, you're hot, you're tired, close it up. It can rain on the stuff in the back, and I don't have to worry about like scrounging up all the tools and getting it put away.
Sure.
But that's a 20-year-old vehicle, and they're inexpensive, but at the same time,
it's more headaches.
It comes with a maintenance question, right? With a business, that's always the balance of between initial startup cost and the other issue is, how do you know it's what you need until you buy it? And so if you buy you sent me a photo of it's basically like a 20-foot or 30-foot full-size Ryder or U-Haul dump moving truck without the bed on the back.
Yeah.
So this is like
it was just, I saw it on the side of the road and I was like, hey, I'm going to stop and look at this.
Yeah. But it's like full 22.5 tire, right? Like it's full semi-tire rear.
Yeah, and that was way too big. As soon as I got up to it, I'm like, oh, this is way too big. But I'm still taking pictures of it.
But it's the exact same. That is the vehicle that Canadian Beekeeper uses with a flatbed and his crane on the front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So,
but
if you're his size, if you're his size, that's the vehicle you need.
Which I'm not sure how many hives he manages, but I would guess like 1,000.
I was gonna say it's in the 1,000. Yeah. And so, I don't know. Part of me wonders if you could get away towing a trailer around.
Yeah, I don't see. So,
but logistically, that's
And on my day-to-day, I'm only hitting 5 sites.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do a whole podcast of a breakdown of what my business is. I'm happy to do that for people out there like, hey, I'm starting out. Maybe I want to go to Sideliner. You probably don't. And maybe I want to go to Sideliner, and then. We can do a breakdown of that. But, yeah, if anybody's listening that has ideas on what would be the ideal, suggestions.
What did you start with for your first beekeeping, other than just an F-150 with a regular bed on the back, right?
Yeah.
Like anybody can go to just find a used pickup truck, right? Like that's.
Yeah. And to be clear, the Lexus, the RX-350 was not my first beekeeping car. I had a Buick Lucerne before that.
Did you beekeep out of the Lucerne?
I did. I beekeeped out of the Lucerne. So I had a little Buick Lucerne before that, which also not a great beekeeping car for anybody. In fact, they don't make them anymore.
They don't, but it's the old dying full-size sedan that you can put a full dead body in the back of the trunk. So
yeah, or 2 hives.
It doesn't really It doesn't really translate to the vehicles they make today because they really don't make full-size sedans like they used to.
Yeah. But, it's...
Anyway, it was just sort of bonus content here at the end where I was like, we've been talking about it a lot. Maybe it has some interest of some of the commercial guys or light commercial guys of the struggle of as you're growing and it's beekeeping tangent related because it's the vehicle we're going to distinctly use explicitly for beekeeping, and therefore it has some sort of, I don't know about unique use cases, but it makes you think about my access to the vehicle in ways that you don't think about if it's just I need to haul some kids around in a minivan, or a vehicle, and then like how many different kinds of vehicles can you just stick some kids and groceries in? Turns out a lot. So, all right, guys, thanks for listening. It's been another great episode here at Beekeeping Buddies. Tune in next episode when we talk about even more beekeeping things. Thanks.